Hey, are you interested in hearing how addiction can affect someone working in the movie industry? Well, today we have Tyler on as our guest, and he will share his full story and the tools he used to get on the road to recovery. We'll be right back after this. Hey,
Okay.
welcome to the Recovery 180 podcast. And today I got Tyler, and you're on the West Coast, and welcome on board, Tyler.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to fit us in. So, yeah, we're really trying to feature recovery and guys that have gone through and done well. And so, I just kind of wondering if you could start off your story as you were a wee man and how you got going as a kid and how life was,
Yeah,
family wise, and all that.
sure. I was basically born and raised in Edmonton. Born and raised in the church. My parents are both pastors, and so started their own church. That was like all I knew. Went had our own Christian school as well. So kind of was that was my life. We did spend some time in Saskatchewan. I know you'll appreciate that.
There you
But
go. Go
and
Riders.
then eventually, yeah. Well, Eskimos
Yeah,
now the Elks.
yeah.
But then came back to Edmonton. So I graduated high school, Millwoods Christian School in Edmonton, and then went to college at NAIT and took
Hmm.
radio and television arts, which then eventually moved me to Vancouver to pursue work in the film industry.
So that makes you an Oiler fan then, because you grew up in
Yes,
Edmonton.
yes,
Yeah.
your nemesis.
It's yeah, we Oiler fans are everywhere. So
The West Coasters, like the Vancouverites, don't like us transplants that are to maintain our roots for our home teams.
yeah, there you go. There you go. So as you're growing up, was that always your interest to get into that sort of industry or?
Um, you know what? I graduated when I was 16, so I hadn't really even grown up to think about what I was going to do. I always thought I was going to be a veterinarian.
Hmm.
In fact, living in Saskatchewan, that was a good benefit because the Western College of Veterinary Medicine takes mostly Saskatchewanites. So I was in good standing to get into that. But when I went and did a practicum with the local vet, I didn't like what vet work was. So I liked animals and taking care of them, but not the destroying of animals and stuff. So
Yeah,
I had
there
to
you go.
quickly pivot, and a family friend was doing a commercial, and so at 17 I jumped in to do a work for a few days with that, and Drew was like, "You have a real aptitude for this. You're quick on your feet. You can respond to stresses and the
Hmm.
ever changing." So he wrote a letter, and I got into college like right away with his recommendation, and then that kind of just set my path for the next, well, I guess last 30 years.
Hmm. So what areas of that industry did you really focus on then? What was your most interest?
In school I was camera and editing, and
Hmm.
that, but then when you move to Vancouver, you can't get a camera job like right off. So
Right.
with the union, they were like, "Oh, you could become a grip," and the grip had everything I wanted. It's never the same thing every day. You're rigging things. You're adjusting to different temperatures and color temperatures and weather temperatures and just and attitudes and people. So just that I found a real good. I had a real flow with the, like, when it was off and when it was on, and when you kind of had to put your pedal down and get it done, and then other
Hmm.
times where you're just got to creatively think of solutions and to help production kind of, we're like, a lot of what you do has never been done before. So you can't just look it up and say, like, now we have these, everyone looks at YouTube videos. That didn't exist. You had to
Yeah.
create. You couldn't look at some other example and say, oh, this is how they did it. Everyone had their trade secrets. So you kind of had to develop your own skill set. And so
Hmm.
I really like that, having a new office every day, like whether it's at a golf course or on the ocean or, up in the mountains, like you just were constantly doing new things. And that's, I think, what kept me attracted to it and kept me in it for a long time.
So you worked as a grip then for a fair while or?
Yeah, that's I basically, as a best boy grip, which is kind of like the manager of the department. So
Right.
all the equipment and manpower and scheduling and all that kind of stuff, and interfacing with the other departments, so you know what the schedule's like, and then reacting to that.
So how was the stress of the industry? Because sometimes there can be pretty long hours and lots of stress.
Yeah, that definitely, like, I looking back, I can see where some certain cracks were developed by that 70 to 80 hour work weeks and young family and all that kind of stuff. So
Hmm.
the stress of it was initially the exciting part and the chaos, which I thrived in. But then over time, you realize if you don't balance your life, that kind of really wears you down. If you don't
Hmm.
have other things and you don't have that work-life balance that everyone talks about, it does not exist in the film industry, nor is it encouraged.
So where did you were saying there were some cracks that started existing or start showing up? In what form were those cracks?
I think generally just yeah, the long hours and having to kind of like just manage, and then being on the road with the gang, and it's a pretty heavy drinking group of people. Like, you kind of reward yourselves at the end of the day. It's not uncommon to like drink on the tailgate for have a couple beers before going home, and you're already working a 14-hour day. Just is the most ridiculous sort of culture. Like, oh well, let's sit down and decompress before we jump in our car. Let's have a beer or two. So
Yeah.
just sort of like fit what I know now. It's like sort of addictive behaviors. Like, oh, okay, that's not normal for people, but that was normal in the film industry. Like,
Hmm.
most people don't have a couple beers after work, at work, and then go home.
So did
So
that did that get to be kind of a tradition then for everybody, including yourself?
oh, for sure. I mean, producers would bring garbage pails full of beer and ciders on a Friday at the end of a long work week, right? So that was just
Hmm.
everyone would trade beers between the different trucks for favors. Like, oh, camera guys needed us to weld something up, or we needed the carpenters to build us a cart. Like, you're always, we call it the beerocracy. Like, everyone's trading booze for favors.
Hmm.
So it's just sort of part of the deal. Like, we all had work trucks and we all had fridges on our work trucks. So it just
Wow.
is part of the culture, especially through the 90s and the 2000s.
So how did that start affecting you in a negative way?
I think the normalizing of it, the idea that, oh, having a couple of drinks after work, and then was just everyone's doing it, and so you kind of feel like you're just part of that's just norm. It's, I guess, yeah, the normalizing of it. That is just, this is what everyone does.
Hmm.
But I don't know that accountants do that. I don't know that
Yeah.
janitors do that. It's sort
Yeah.
of doctors definitely. Like, it just was part of our culture.
Hmm. So did your upbringing have anything to do with, was there a conscience? Were you aware of your conscience? Did it make you feel somewhat guilty that you were living that lifestyle based on how you grew up in a spiritually based home or?
Yeah, I don't know that that was a conscious thought of like I'm stepping away from something. Like, in my life, we were still, you know, raised our kids, going to church on Sundays, doing all the sort of Christian things. But
Mhm.
um, if there was an excuse on a Saturday night, rap party or something, and went late, you maybe didn't make it to church that day, but you went in the next week. So it was never like I lost sight of God, or that God I didn't, that never. I guess I was kind of living a hypocritical life in that I wasn't acknowledging that how much booze had was part of my life,
Mm.
and it was just it was not either or, it just was. So only after, like, now that I'm in recovery, that I can kind of look back and see the signs of like denial and being dishonest with myself and how I felt about it.
Mm.
And once
Mm.
you kind of really, once the hooks really got in, and you get to that point where you're not just a social drinker, you're an everyday drinker, and then you're a problem drinker. So that's sort of
Yeah.
my path. That I had to, like, it seems incremental in when you're in it. When I look back, I'm like, can see where that pattern started, like in my 20s, when we all like to think like, oh, COVID,
Hmm.
everyone's stressed out. We
Yeah.
all started heavy drinking there. It's like, oh, no, I was drinking since, through my 20s, traveling the world and working around the world, and it always around booze and celebrating and exploring and adventuring in all these countries and in the different new places, always with a drink in hand.
So the fun side of it, how about the bad side? How bad did it really get for you?
Well, yeah, I don't want to glorify that too much, but when you wake up in a hospital having to get your eyelid restitched, I have 5 stitches put in, and to have no idea what happened, don't I know how I got there? I just came to in a hospital.
Hmm.
Then you realize that, and you're like, oh, that's pretty severe. When I look back, I'm like, I also had lost my license. I also had some other, occurring things, like physically, like my health and stuff. I had psoriasis all over my body. my body was shutting down. I was blacking out. I was kind of making excuses to not go to work, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So it became that. And that was in the last, really only the last, like I've been in recovery for 3 years now, kind of right as I was approaching 50. It was like, oh, I should make some changes. And then when I wanted to make changes, I physically could not.
Hmm.
And that's when it was like, oh, this is a problem, getting the shakes, getting the tremors, having, right on the risk of having seizures and that kind of stuff. And that's when it gets really scary of like, I don't remember the last day of what happened. I don't remember the last time I was like sober for a day. And that's problematic. Even when you're trying to get sober, when you
Hmm.
physically can't. Then I knew that I had really gone past the pickle point and I needed to get help. So that's when I had to reach out and ask for help.
So, so what was it like to admit to yourself that you were probably in an addiction position?
It took a while. Like I had from the first time I might have said out loud, I think it was to my wife at the time and her sisters. They were sat me down, and I had just lost my license, I guess, for the second time.
Hmm.
And she's like, "Well, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess I'm an alcoholic." And it was the first time I'd ever said it out loud,
How did that feel?
and it felt terrible. It felt
Hmm.
really terrible, and it kind of, but also once I did that, then I knew immediately, well, I need to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I need to start seeking help, and
Hmm.
then realized I wasn't alone. And then I had a lot of support that kind of buoyed me up to be like, we've all dealt with this, and there are people continually dealing with this,
Hmm.
and kind of move through. So doing AA initially was useful, but I needed to take a step away from my lifestyle, like just in working and the stresses of everything. And I had to really take a whole year off and go to Wagner Hills and get a real reset for my life and reconnect with God and kind of do all the things I was not really doing, but I kind of in the back of my mind know that I needed to do.
Hmm.
So that's what I had to kind of like admit to me, myself, to God, to others that I had a problem and get some real serious help to solve it.
Hmm. Did you start to feel then shortly after being there that this was the right decision? You're on the right road?
Yeah, honestly, even just the tour that first day I got there, we dropped the bags off and you get the tour of the farm.
Hmm.
Just the peace and in being around people who are also seeking that. Um, I, by coincidence and all, I would say God's hand, I ran into someone I knew from the film industry who was also seeking help, and we
Hmm.
were able to kind of bond on our shared experience, and that he was a little bit ahead of me, so I could like learn from him about what it would take to get through living. Like when you live as a father in a house, there's a difference of going to live in community with 20 or 30 other guys, and you're
Hmm.
not the dad anymore. So
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
bit of an adjustment, but I think the idea that everyone was there for the same reason, to get help,
Hmm.
and then just stay the course. And it was hard, and there was difficult days, and luckily the staff and the other residents are just, you're all trying to get to the same end, right? You're just trying to get better, get well, transform your life.
Hmm.
And so with always that, when it was a hard day, just held on to that idea that my life was getting better, and it was getting better weekly. Like
Yeah.
things were
Yeah.
kind of coming back. My health was coming back. My relationship with my kids was coming back, all that kind of stuff. And it just, you have to stay that course. Um, and it gets frustrating because you think like, okay, I've done a year. I'm sober. It's great. And I realized when I graduated, this last 8 months has been almost more difficult than that year away, because
Mm.
you start realizing you're peeling the onion, right? You're starting to get to the core, the things that you need about yourself, your ego, your self will, and you kind of start learning how to get rid of that and give it to God and get better and help others, and that's sort of where I'm
Mm.
at now.
So how was your relationship with the family then, before and after and now? How was that affected?
Well, I think they talking about with them now, they were really scared because my body, and it was just deteriorating physically, so they could see it, and they would ask it like, and I was in addiction. I was in denial, and so I think they were just scared for me and wanted the best for me. So a little bit of tough love, and got encouraged me to continue to seek help and get better. And so just my demeanor, my walk with God, just my whole focus on what is important to me in life has has really shown them that, as opposed to just making statements and saying I'm going to get better or I'm sorry. I'm
Mhm.
actually walking the walk and doing the things that I need to do to stay
Mhm.
sober, to help others, to be a better part of society, like, which I was until I wasn't. And so it's been good to have that back and have a great relationship with my 18-year-old son and my daughter, and we're just doing great things together individually, but also as a family still. So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, it's everything is getting restored.
So does it feel like some days like it's a second chance?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, there was definitely, because I know when I think back to the worst days when I was in addiction, that I didn't want to wake up. Like I was just like, it'd be easier for everybody if I just wasn't here anymore.
Right.
But you know, and that I think a lot of people go through that thing of that, like, God, either like take me now or help me. Like there's
Mhm. Mhm.
that desperation. I think understanding, like being able to communicate what addiction is and what it isn't,
Mhm.
to let them kind of grow into it, and understand what I didn't know and why it took so long. And then how, you know, now that has to be a part of my life for the rest of my life, is
Mhm.
that living in recovery is about helping others, and you just having that spirit, strength, and hope that you want to share, right? As the big book says. And so that's
Mhm.
a kind of part of my life, is the way I can continue going is that I've committed to it and have accepted that I have that aspect of my life that has to be dealt with, like on a regular basis. But
Mhm.
similar to a cancer treatment, it's in remission. My alcoholism is in remission. As long as I keep doing the medicine, which is keeping my mental health good, keeping my walk with God good, and keeping my community around me, then
Mhm.
I will stay in remission. And I'm pretty confident about that.
No, that's a good way of looking at it. So after coming out of the recovery center, out of the treatment center, what sort of components have you put together that are kind of your stepping stones that are keeping you walking the straight and narrow and looking in a positive direction?
Yeah, well, I would say that I'm really, what got drilled into me was that community, because
Hmm.
I realized in my addiction, when I was drinking, I was drinking by myself in the dark in the basement, not like, wasn't having a fun time doing it. So
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
connection in community. So I'm still connected with the guys at the farm. I volunteer at my church and work in production there. I'm a member of the treatment committee for my AA group. So I really took those teachings about community, and of given myself 3 or 4 communities that support me, and that I can just, if I'm having a hard day, I can lean on them. But when I'm having a good day, they also celebrate that. So
Hmm. And I understand that you're a certified recovery coach now.
I am. I got my peer support specialist certification, and that led me into becoming a recovery coach and taking the training. So
Hmm.
all aspects of that whole giving back and helping others aspect of recovery.
Hmm. So what sort of advice do you give? I mean, the guys or the ladies that are walking through a lifestyle right now where they maybe haven't got to a point where they've accepted the fact that maybe I've got an addiction problem. Like, how could you challenge somebody like that to like, hey, step out and look in the mirror as to what really is going on?
Yeah, I think what I would say from my experience was that, um, if you think you can stop and you can't stop, then you need to analyze that. Like
Mm,
if you're like, oh, it's not a problem, well, try not drinking for a week, try not drinking for a month, and you'll realize how often you were doing it. Like I think the standards are, like, if you drink more than 4 standard drinks a week, you're a heavy drinker. Like I would have that in a sitting before going out. So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
we,
yeah.
as a society, we accept that drinking with a dinner, you know, wine with dinner or something, that's regular. If you're having 4 or 6 drinks a couple times a week and you can't not do that, then you need to look at your lifestyle. And I think it's good to be sober curious in the early stages and be like, look, and again, anyone will tell you, you don't have to quit forever. You just have to quit for today, and
Hmm.
then try it
Hmm.
again tomorrow and see how you feel. And many people I know who weren't problem drinkers, but have also just societally we're kind of getting away from alcohol. I have a number of friends that, because of my struggle, they looked at their drinking and didn't have to go to treatment or AA. They just stopped drinking and realized how much their lives improved. So you don't have to have problem addiction drinking to actually analyze your look at that poison and see where it sits in your life. Because I think most people would do better by having a little less drink in their life.
So would it make sense to say it's not what you drink, it's why you drink?
That is correct, 100%. As many people will say when you're in treatment or in AA, it's drinking is not the problem, it's a solution for another problem. So when you get to the other problem, which is your self-will, which is your irritability, which is your irrational fears, all these other things that you're numbing or trying to coax, you're like, I don't want to deal with it, so I'm going to drink so I don't think about it, that kind of stuff. That's where you realize you have other problems. And I think we all have problems that we don't deal with. I think therapy is great. People need to talk from things that might be in their childhood or in their work life, stress, all these things that we kind of bury and we don't think we're the unique ones, that we're the only ones having problems. And I think that was my issue, is I took too much on of other people's problems and wasn't really analyzing my own self-interest.
Well, I heard it said once, start by working on the person that you see in the mirror in the morning when you wake up, and work on that person first.
That is 100%. And that was when the scary part was when you would look in the mirror and say, Tyler, you can't be doing this anymore. Your body's failing you. You're not working as much as you should be. You're not contributing. And then you're like, I'm not drinking today. And an hour later, you're in the bottle and you're automaton, your body just took over. It's like, well, whatever your thoughts were, we don't care. And so you need to look at yourself in the mirror sooner and often.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your passion for today? What is it moving forward for you now that you've, you're on this road to recovery? You know that it's a battle that's always going to be there, right? But what excites you now? Because you've got a new start. You've got a second chance.
Yeah, one of the things I think really that I'm focusing on is helping others, and specifically dads in recovery. There's not a lot of resources for sober dads. So there's resources for people who got sober then had kids, but if my kids witnessed my addiction, and so we have to have very frank conversations and not about that. But I also know in an expanded universe, there's so many dads that then have maybe lost their connection with their kids, lost their families, their marriages, all that kind of stuff. And the rebuilding process, you can feel real defeated while you're trying to build those relationships back with your kids. So I'm looking to try to figure out a way to share with dads that hope that your family can be restored. And I think that's one of the things God's put on my heart to really look at and show dads that it can happen and that they can be restored.
Maybe you need a sober dads AA group.
There is one in Vancouver. I've been to it a couple times. It's one. Yeah. And it's at 8:30 at night on a Tuesday. It's a little difficult, but they've only been going for about 6 months. But I think that shows you that this is a thing. It's great to go to regular AA meetings, but there's a specific thing of how do you deal with kids, punishing them or disciplining them and not letting it get weaponized that you made mistakes and all that kind of stuff. So a balance of being frank and open for age appropriateness, but also knowing, you genetically, they might be predisposed. So you got to kind of make them aware of the pitfalls as well.
Well, you got some good plans, and I'm really curious to stay on top of what you're all going to do. And I'm sure we're going to cross paths every once in a while. So,
will do.
Yeah. So you're staying plugged in. You're taking care of your recovery capital as you've been trained in the recovery coaching, right? And so what would you say recovery capital is for you? What does that mean for you?
For me, definitely it's community connection, making sure that people are checking in on you and that you're checking on others. And that sort of keeps that really, that's the core for my recovery, is community, and then reaching out and helping others.
Oh, good, good. Well, it sounds like you're doing well, and you're going in the right direction, and God has given you a second chance to restart, and you've got some good things on the go. So I'll leave the last few words up to you if you want to challenge somebody that's out there that you think maybe needs to go down the road that you went down.
Yeah, I would just say if you're having thoughts that you might have a problem, you probably have a problem, and you should
Mhm.
ask for someone to help you, walk alongside you. There's so much options now. I hear the stories from the guys who are 30 years sober, how much more difficult it was. So we have a lot of resources. Just ask someone you know who's in recovery, and they will come alongside you.
Hmm. Well, great advice, and hopefully you who are listening out there will take that advice and reach out for somebody. And thank you, Tyler, for taking time and sharing your story. Look forward to again crossing paths with you. And thank you for taking time to be on the Recovery 180 podcast. We hope that we're changing the lives of people and that people will maybe some dads will watch this and say, "Hey, I want to hook up with Tyler. Let's get a group going," so
Yeah, let's do it.
that's
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for
that'd be
letting me
great.
share.
All right, thank you.
All
Okay,
right.
we'll see you.
Bye.